to another edition of the Tragics. Huge show lined up for you. We've got a new panel member tonight as well. It is Outman and in Burgess. We welcome the Premier C scribe, Christian Burgess. Welcome to the panel.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on board. Nick Armistead, always good to have your company on the panel. Nice to see a blue shirt for a change.
Thought I'd change it up a bit, but you know, the big news obviously is Christian tonight, not the shirt
VAFA
change.
blue in a way as well.
It is a little bit. I'm just representing.
Yeah, big V lunch coming up in next week or so?
Next Friday.
Next Friday.
August 5.
Sure we'll hear about that in the headlines, no doubt. Let's move straight into Premier section, William Buck Premier section. We'll kick things off with the University Blues and D last. This was a huge game in the context of both club seasons. Blues, who went down last week, managed to bounce back with a big win of sorts. Well, not a big win in terms of the point situation, but it was a big win in terms of their season. They keep their position on top of the table, 2 points clear of Old Trinity, who also had a win. But De La Salle, more importantly, have now dropped their past 4 games, I believe, Nick. And that's worrying signs for De La Salle when they've only kicked 1 behind in the final quarter. And after kicking the first 4 goals of the game, they only managed 3 after that. It
was a little bit disappointing, and they'll be disappointing with their recent form. Will take a lot out of getting Adrian Indovino back, and Matt Fieldson, who did tear his pec, in round 2 against Old Zavarians, came back, and as we know, he's a Woodrow medal winner, and if they're going to snap it out of form...
Fieldson was back, Xavier Murphy back in for the first time in 4 weeks, and you mentioned Indovino back from VFL duties, so De La Salle had a really strong team. Certainly on paper, but as we see so often with this season, Old Trinity went through the patch and De La Salle are going through it still. Once you losing form's hard to shake.
It absolutely is, and it doesn't get easier when you go to the Uni Oval. As we know, Uni Blues play that oval better than absolutely anybody. It is still a bit of a mud pit, and so if you are in a bit of bad form, it's not where you want to try and snap out of it.
Injury news out of the game. Jeremy Mugovan hurt his shoulder, and he's getting that assessed, so we'll wait and see if he fronts up. Of course, with the bye next week in William Buck Premier and all the Premier sections, that's going to aid his ability to be back on the park in round 15. Importantly, the Blues had 25 scoring shots to 15, so really dominant throughout. They were wasteful in the early stages, of course, with the sloppy conditions. Balls to the line don't necessarily mean they're staying in play. They're being punched through. It's a very defensive mindset when you're in that defensive line. But worrying signs for D-La. They would want to bounce back with a win because finals are on the line. I'm sure we'll tackle that in the 4 questions later on. Nick, you had a look at St Bernard's and Collegians, and the Bernies are still in contention to avoid relegation.
Absolutely. It was a tight tussle for 4 full quarters, with neither side really holding a lead of more than 4 points at any break in play. Despite the deadlock, Alex McLeod did his best to ignite the crowd in the second quarter. And with this stunner from the boundary, have a look at that. Look at him ignite from the pack there. And they were trailing by 12 points with 5 minutes remaining, but Will Tardif and Andrew Scott both goaled for the Lions and drew level before Jacob Bavanta had 2 bites of the cherry here at the end. And it was rushed behind for arguably his most important point in his career to date. He'd be very happy with that. Nathan Chizuro was and has been fantastic for the Snow Dogs, and Darren Kalako finished with 3 goals.
4 goals for Johnson for Collegians. They now go into that worrying situation where St Bernard's can catch them.
They are. They're only two wins ahead of them now. But it's great to see, as you said, Will Johnson. He's usually a defender. He's a key defender for the Big V in the Sarful match this year. He's gone forward and kicked 4 goals. So it seems they're mixing it up a little bit there. Shane Joyce is mixing it up, but they didn't win, but that still worked.
Had a bit of a look at Old Trinity and Carey as well. Old Trinity are back towards their best. You're not quite there yet. They've still got Polydorus and Nicolosi to come back in. Interesting to see Harry Tinney spend the second half mostly on the bench, just resting up, making sure he couldn't get injured. I mean, the game was done pretty much by that point anyway. Old Trinity running out big winners over Old Carey, and Old Carey will no doubt be looking forward to Premier B next year. Anthony Scott's going to be important for the Tees, and if he can stay in and not be called up to VFL duties, then that's going to be an important in for the Tees in finals time. I want to turn your attention, gents and Christian, and particularly to this game. I'm interested in your thoughts on this umpiring decision that is at the end of St Kevin's and Old Melburnians. A couple of minutes to go. We take a look at the vision now, and you can see that the long kick comes into the top of the goal square. At this stage, OMs are up, and so tackle to the ground. I'm not sure if you think that's a sling tackle, Christian.
It was there. It was definitely there. It was a tough tackle, but I guess at the time of the game, it's very controversial to make a decision like that.
The free kick is not for the tackle there, but it is for that ball thrown in the face. We slowed the vision down there, so a bit of slow motion. I don't think that's whether it's a free kick or not. I'm not sure, and I haven't checked in with Benny, and I'm sure Benny will give me a call after watching Tragics later this week. But spirit of the game wise, you're not paying a free kick for that, are you?
No, I think at the that time of the game, with as much as there is on the line at the minute, I think you just let it go. You let the boys play it out and let them make the decisions for themselves and who's going to be winning on the day. And it was a tough call.
Yeah, I agree. I think you put the whistle away.
it's a strange one. But yeah, if it happens in the middle of the ground, does it get paid? It probably does happen paid. You don't think much of it. You think it's a silly free kick, but in the goal square with the game on the line, it was a really tough call. Old Zavs did no damage to their charge towards September. They've won their last 5 straight, I believe, now, with a big win over University Blacks at Toorak Park. Blacks did manage to close the difference in the second quarter, got close, got within a goal, but it was all Zavs in the second half, and they stretched away, and they're a worrying threat to every team coming towards September.
Absolutely, and probably the best thing that they'll take out of that is the fact that they weren't really relying on Brendan Goss and Matt Hanley up forward. That between them, they kicked 4 goals, and Dennis Simiopoulos, he's been fantastic this year. Across that wing and half forward, he kicked 3 goals, so that's probably the most impressive thing out of their game.
Yeah, it was, and look out, the Red and Blacks are certainly back. We'll take a break on the Tragics and be back with more just after this.
Anytime is the right time to get fit at Anytime Fitness. Access over 400 gyms across the country 24/7 and discover why more Australians train at Anytime Fitness than any other gym. Go online and register now for your free 7-day pass and feel something better.
Welcome back to the Tragics. It's time now for the VAFA headlines with Nick Armistead.
Thank you, Andrew. St Bernard's star-on baller and Woodrow Medal fancy Tom Sullivan appeared on Paul Daffy's podcast earlier this week and dropped a bombshell regarding his potential retirement at season's end to instead focus his energy on athletics. Sullivan commenced training with his athletics coach during pre-season this year and has shown considerable promise on the track, running a sub-48-second 400 metres with little track-specific training. Sullivan is a key cog to the Snow Dogs midfield and has been tipped to go deep in the 2016 Woodrow Medal count. The VAFA board will make the official decision on next year's women's competition this Monday when they meet at Sports Cover Arena. It is anticipated the number of women's team in 2017 would range from 10 to 18, with a 12-round season, the recommendation going to the board next week. And just a reminder, the Big V Club will hold its 10th annual lunch next week and celebrate the inductions of Peter Sherwin and Michael Devison as Big V champions. For more information and to purchase tickets, visit vafa.com.au. And that's it for this week's headlines.
Thank you very much, Nick. Tom Sullivan's going to run the 400 metres, is he?
It looks like it.
48 seconds.
Sub 48 seconds.
Sub 48. World record's 43, so he's got to shave 5 seconds off. Is he going to represent Australia?
There's no training
yet. Lightning quick.
He is.
That's very quick, but it's 5 seconds is a lot.
If he specifically trains for it, I definitely think there's an opportunity there. You watch him and get over the back of a pack. He trains specifically for 400 metres, and I'd rate him a chance to represent Australia.
Good luck, Tom. I'm not sure. We like watching you run around for St Bernard's, maybe. We'll see. I'll back you in all the way. Performance plays of the week. We missed them at the top of the show. We've just slotted them in after the news headlines. Christian, why don't you kick us off?
Yep, definitely. My performance player of the week is Stefan Barber from Peninsula Pirates. He's had a fantastic season, kicked 5 on the weekend, but that brings his tally to 53, leading Premier C goal kicking now by 8 goals. And just capping off what is been a fantastic year for him. And from all reports from opposition, he's one of the toughest men to match up on. He's not a big power forward. He's a medium-sized forward, really difficult to match up on. He's elusive, skillful, really talented.
Well, that's about enough.
He gets my player of the week.
Oh, yeah. Nick.
I wonder who your favourite player for Peninsula is. Well, I'm going down to Division 3 to Hawthorn Amateur Football Club. Ross McDermott, kicked 11 last week in a thumping, in an absolute day out for himself, and booted another 4 on the weekend against Albert Park. So well done, Ross. You're my performance player of the week.
Brody McLaughlin from Bulleen Templestowe, well done. The Bull Ants had a big win over Emmaus St Leo's. It was an 8-point game as well, so they now move to 24 points. Bulleen Templestowe do ahead of Emmaus St Leo's on 20, who sit in 8th spot, just above the relegation places there in Division 2. So well done to them. On to Premier B, and there was a couple of huge results in Premier B. Beaumaris beating Old Scotch and putting the wobbles into Old Scotch. Hampton Rovers' magnificent win over Old Haileybury at the end of the game. You would have seen that vision on the VAFA Facebook page during the week. But it was Fitzroy over St Bede's Mentone Tigers that really threw the cat amongst the pigeons.
Absolutely. Fitzroy have been, since a slow start, losing their first 4, they've been thereabouts the entire season. They gave St Bede's Mentone Tigers something to think about heading into the latter part of the season, defeating them by 12 points at Brunswick Street Oval. It was all the Roys in the first quarter of the match as they piled on 4 goals from 12 scoring shots and created a 25-point buffer, which would ultimately prove the difference. Chris Doherty kicked 2 goals, and Aidan Lambert, who has been fantastic this year, was best of field for the Roys, while George Rowlands was the only Tiger to kick more than 1 goal. Fitzroy remained just half a game outside the 4 because Monash defeated Ajax.
Yeah, huge result. Old Brighton beating Parkdale. Having the Tunners come home in the last couple of weeks as well, Nick. It's unbelievable form they've been showing. And the Jackers, their finals quest is probably maybe challenging at this stage after they went down to Monash Blues, who they had to win to stave off Fitzroy rejoining the 4 and taking that 4th spot.
Absolutely. Well, as you mentioned before, it is now Fitzroy are really on the tail of both Old Scotch and Monash. So Monash, if they just keep winning, that's all they need to do.
Absolutely. Into Premier C, and Christian, we got you in here for a reason. We wanted you to tell us about Premier C. Old Campbell, they're trying to avoid relegation. They had a great win over Williamstown.
They did. It was a great win over Williamstown, and it was a must-win for Williamstown in the end if they really wanted to play in September. They had their chances there with Old Ivanhoe just starting to slip away, and coming the tail end of the year, they had to win that game, but Old Campbell got the better of them.
Other games of note, Old Ivanhoe tied with Marsland, so we have a draw situation there. It makes an interesting situation for the ladder at the bottom, and particularly for Marsland, as percentage goes out of the equation now.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's 4 teams down the bottom that are trying to fight off relegation, with Old Camberwell and Oakley both on 16 points, and Marsland on 14, Ormond on 12.
Yeah. Who do you think will be the ones to drop out of there?
I think at this stage it's going to be Ormond and Oakley are my 2 picks.
Ormond and Oakley. So Marsland will find a way. As he mentioned, they're currently in 9th spot. 78%, not really relevant. The percentage is only 6% between all of them. So all of them, those sides can turn that around. As we mentioned with Marsland, with that draw now, probably they just need to win enough and get enough points to be ahead of the bottom 2. Currently, so Oakley 16, 79%. Old Campbell 82% and 16 as well. Williamstown and Kew probably done enough, both on 6 wins.
Yeah, I think they're well and truly clear of relegation. In my opinion, they're fighting for a final spot. They're fighting for that 4th spot between Old Ivanhoe, Kew, Williamstown. Those 3 are the only 2 that can pinch it. And I'd love to see Kew get there. I would, because I think they were my pick at the start of the year to make the top 4, and I'd love to see them get there. They've beaten 2 of the top 4 teams. They've beaten Mazenod and Old Ivanhoe. So I think if they can make it to finals, they can obviously do damage when they get there. It's just a matter of if they've left it too little, too late.
Well, I'm sure we might cover that in the questions, or maybe we won't now. We're going to do a comprehensive review of the divisions next week with all the Premier sections taking a bye. So
just
Red
before
Man
we do, Andrew, I know we're going to do it next week, but there is one game I'd like to touch on, and it's in Division 1.
Yep.
Paradians, one club in particular. They look like they're going to escape relegation at this stage. They didn't win a game in the first half of the season, and are now 6 points clear of the bottom 2 after their win against St Mary's on the weekend. So St Mary's, who were on top after round 10, had a good run, 8-2, but in the last 4 games they've dropped all 4 actually, and now sit 5th. So I'd like to make note of Paradians. They've had a fantastic second half of the year.
Tell you what, Manny, you're in trouble. In big trouble, Brenton, man. But I'm sure you'll be back next week to give us a full rundown and join us on Tragics next week as we take a look at the divisions. It'll be exclusive division chat next week. Time now for the 4 questions. Nick, why don't you open up the bowling today?
Thank you. I'm going straight back to you, Andrew. Last week you asked me if Old Scotch will stay in Premier B for a 2nd consecutive year. This week I want to ask you, are they even going to make the finals?
Well, it's a really interesting question, Nick, and I'm glad you've asked it. Old Scotch, unbelievably, I reckon they could miss the 4. Fitzroy have shown that they've got the capabilities. They've drawn with Beau Morris. They've beaten St Bede's Mentone Tigers. The Roys are flying, and they're on track for a first ever finals campaign in Premier B. Monash Blues, they're hanging on, and I think they rolled Old Scotch a couple of weeks ago as well. So, Old Scotch are in trouble. I don't think they're going to miss the 4 necessarily, but their run home is this. They've got Old Brighton, who arguably probably need to win 1 more to guarantee safety. Old Haileybury, who are fighting relegation away, so that'll be a challenging game. Fitzroy away, and Fitzroy and Old Scotch all of a sudden becomes a huge game in round 17 as the Roys are trying to chase that final spot. And Hampton Rovers, the final game of the year. Well, Rovers had a great win on the weekend, and they're trying to avoid relegation as well. That's round 18 at Camberwell. They probably will hang on, Old Scotch, but it's a challenging run home all the same. Christian, is the 4 done in Premier C? I know we just discussed it.
We did.
Is it done? So Old Ivanhoe, can they drop out, or do you think they'll hang on?
I think they're going to fall into that 4th spot. They've just fallen away their last few games, but I think they're just going to hold on. As I said, I'd love to see Kew get there. I think Kew could really do damage, go for their 4th in a row. It'd be really exciting. I think for the whole VAFA community, it'd be exciting to get 4 in a row. So I'd love to see them get there. As I said, they've beaten 2 of the top 4 sides.
They wear the brown and gold Kew as well, like Hawthorn.
They do. No, they're an impressive outfit down there, and I like them a lot. So I'd love to see them get there, but I think at this stage, Old Ivanhoe will just hold on. And Kew and Willie, they'll be relying on Old Ivanhoe to drop all of their last few games.
Can Old Ivanhoe do damage in the finals?
They've shown that they can. But I think you've touched on it previously on the Tragic Show in regards to their inconsistency. Their inability to perform week in, week out. They just show that inconsistency, and unfortunately, I think if they make it, they'll be first to leave. Now, I'll throw one to you, Nick. Speaking of top 4, topic of the night, D. Larcell. Which players from D. La are the most important to break this losing streak they're in at the minute and to ensure they can play finals this year?
Well, I think everyone needs to step up a little bit. They've lost 4 in a row. I think maybe a little bit. They're just going through a form slump as we did. Look, a lot of teams have gone through form slumps, as we mentioned earlier. But probably for me, I think the 2 most important for them would be Adrian Indovino and Anthony Ferrado. I've spoken probably about both of them through various forms of media throughout the year. Not that they need to stand up, but I just think that they're most important players. I think Anthony Ferrado is a top 2 ruckman in the league. I'm not going to shy away from that. Him and John Shaw. I think if they meet, and I said it last week, I think if they meet in the finals, I would pay tickets just to go watch John Shaw versus Anthony Ferrado and Adrian Indovino. Not so much his goal kicking, which we know is elite, but his forward line pressure, he's as quick as anyone in that forward line, and I think if those 2 stand up, Fieldson's back, they'll be fine. Andrew, I've got one more for you.
Well, we're done, but yeah, go on.
So we spoke about the umpiring decision earlier in Old Melburnians and St Kevin's game. Has that decision cost Old Melburnians a finals place?
We're seeing it again. It's as on our screens now. I don't know if it's cost them a finals place. I think it's too strong to say that, but gee, they'd be dirty, I reckon, OMs. And maybe it's there, I don't know. Again, I'll defer to Benny and Woody at the VAFA, and of course the umpires involved. They'll probably tell me that technically it's there, but I don't like it personally. And I'm not going to say it's cost them, because I think they can still win enough games, and it's still tight enough with both Blacks and De La Salle losing. OMs are still right in that hunt for that 4th spot. On that note, we'll finish it there, and looking forward to my letter in the mail from the umpiring department as we've just raised a bit of question mark over one of the decisions. We hope you enjoyed the Tragics this week. Thanks, Christian, for joining us.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Nick, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Andrew.
We'll see you again next week on the Tragics.